They say, society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. It's one of the most beautiful definitions of long-term thinking. And yet, in today's world, where speed is worshipped and attention is short, very few people live by it. Hi, this is Nathan. Welcome back to The Long Game. And before we dive in, thank you, truly, for listening, subscribing, and leaving all those thoughtful comments. I read every single one of them. Even if I don't always reply, because between work, family, and raising a little one, time is tight, please know I see you, and I appreciate you deeply. Now, let's talk about intergenerational success. It's easy to think of success as something personal, your career, your wealth, your achievements. But there's a deeper layer to it, one that doesn't stop at you, one that stretches beyond your lifetime. Intergenerational success means building something so strong, so enduring, that it benefits people who come after you, your children, your students, your community, even people you'll never meet. Think about the great cathedrals of Europe. When they were designed, architects knew they'd never see the final dome completed. Some projects took 200 years. Generations of masons, artists, and carpenters worked on something whose completion was beyond their lives, and yet they showed up every day, brick by brick, because they believed the effort itself had meaning. That's what planting a tree you won't sit under feels like. You're not planting for yourself. You're planting because you understand time differently. You're no longer chasing instant results. You're investing in a chain of impact that connects you to the future. And in that mindset, success stops being a sprint and becomes a legacy. But here's the paradox. In our generation, the idea of doing something for others you'll never meet feels almost foreign. Social media rewards quick recognition. Markets reward quarterly results. Even relationships are often measured in what we get out of them. That's why intergenerational success requires rebellion, a quiet, patient rebellion against the short-term world. When you choose to live by principles instead of trends, when you build a business not to sell it, but to hand it over, when you teach your child how to think instead of what to do, you are, in your own way, planting a tree. And here's something powerful. The shade of those trees doesn't just cool the next generation, it transforms you. Because the moment you start thinking beyond yourself, you start living with peace, with purpose, with the calm of knowing that you're part of something larger. That's the beauty of playing the long game. We'll go deeper in the next part, into how to build systems, habits, and values that last beyond your lifetime. Because true success isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what keeps growing when you're gone. Stay with me. This is where the long view really begins.
When we talk about building something that lasts beyond us, most people imagine money, inheritance, property, investments. But those are only the surface layer. True intergenerational success isn't about passing down assets. It's about passing down foundations. The foundation of thinking, the foundation of character, the foundation of habits. Because wealth without wisdom disappears fast. But wisdom, even without wealth, can recreate abundance again and again. So let's take a step back and look at what really compounds across generations. If you teach a child how to delay gratification, you're not just shaping their behavior for one moment, you're reshaping how they make every decision for the rest of their life. You're giving them time preference, the ability to trade now for later, That's what investors call the compounding mindset. It's not just about money, it's about how humans interact with time. And that, right there, is the bridge between you and the generations after you. Because time is the only resource that connects all of us. Your great-grandparents planted something you're standing on right now. Values, structures, opportunities, or maybe lessons learned from their failures. And the question is, what are you planting today that someone 100 years from now will still benefit from? It could be a company. It could be a philosophy. It could simply be a way of treating people. There's a quiet truth about compounding. It's invisible in the short term, but unstoppable in the long term. When a father reads to his child every night, the child may not remember every story, but decades later, that child will instinctively read to his own. That's the real inheritance, not the stories, but the pattern, not the wealth, but the way. And patterns compound faster than portfolios. You can see this in nations too. Japan rebuilt itself after the war, not just with capital, but with a generational transfer of discipline, craftsmanship, and community focus. They didn't just rebuild buildings, they rebuilt culture. That's why 80 years later, you still see that mindset in how they produce, how they serve, how they honor work. It's not luck, it's inheritance of behavior. Now here's the hard truth. If we don't intentionally design what we pass down, the world will design it for us. And usually, the world passes down distraction. Think about how easy it is to hand over screens instead of stories, to give toys instead of time, to outsource teaching values to algorithms. But what we neglect to model, the next generation learns to neglect too. So intergenerational success isn't built on one grand decision. It's built on 1,000 small, invisible ones. Choosing patience over impulse, kindness over cleverness, depth over display. Every time you hold your standard when no one's watching, when it's inconvenient, when it costs you something, you're writing the code for the culture your children will inherit. And I'll say this to you listening right now. If you're already thinking about these things, you're already part of the rare few who do, because it takes a certain kind of maturity to care about things you'll never personally enjoy. That's emotional compounding. That's the long view. You know, when Warren Buffett was asked what he wanted to be remembered for, he didn't say the billions. He said he wanted people to think he was a teacher. Because money fades, but the mindset, that outlives everything. And if you think about it, every teacher, every parent, every builder is planting something invisible, an ecosystem of values that keeps working even when they're gone. Now imagine a world where more people lived that way, where corporations thought in 50-year horizons, not 5, where politicians cared about the grandchildren of the people who voted for them, not just the next election, where individuals built their success so it could hold the weight of generations, not just the next quarterly report. That's how civilizations rise. And that's also how they fall when short-term greed replaces long-term stewardship. It's a mindset, a compass, a way of seeing time not as a threat, but as an ally. We'll explore that compass next, how to practically design your life, your work, and your impact, so that your success becomes intergenerational architecture. Because in the end, you don't need to live forever. You just need to build something that does. Stay tuned.
Let's talk about design. Because legacy doesn't happen by accident, it happens by architecture. Most people live reactively. They work, they earn, they consume, they retire. But those who think generationally, they design their lives as blueprints. They know they are laying bricks not just for their own house, but for a city that will one day hold their children's dreams. And that's the shift. From me to we, from now to beyond. So how do you build an architecture that endures? Let's start with the inner foundation, the one that time cannot erode. First, values before vision. A clear vision can inspire, but it's your values that hold the structure when the storms come. Ask yourself, what principles would I want my great-grandchildren to still live by? Because that's your real inheritance. Courage, integrity, curiosity, empathy, consistency. Those are the beams that never rot. Second, habits over heroes. You don't need to be extraordinary to create extraordinary results. You just need the right habits, consistently applied across time. Think of habits as software that runs silently in the background. Small, invisible actions that, when passed down, create cultural DNA. If your children see you read every night, they absorb curiosity. If they watch you keep promises, they learn integrity. If they see you apologize, they inherit humility. Every small action is a line of code in the human operating system. And when repeated across generations, those lines turn into the code of a civilization. Third, systems over sentiments. We often rely on good intentions. I'll teach them what's right. I'll set an example. But if there is no system, values evaporate. Build rituals. Build reminders. Build structures that make good behavior automatic. It could be a family meeting every Sunday where everyone shares one thing they learned that week. It could be a yearly journal where you write one letter to your future descendants. It could even be a rule. We never leave a dinner table without gratitude. Rituals turn ideals into identity. Fourth, think in terms of stewardship, not ownership. Ownership says, "This is mine." Stewardship says, "This is my turn." And that mindset changes everything. Because when you see yourself as a steward of time, of opportunity, of knowledge, you no longer need to win everything. You just need to take care of your part well enough so that those who come next can build higher. That's why ancient builders carved their initials in hidden corners of temples, not for fame, but for a quiet signature of gratitude. They knew they were part of something far greater than themselves. You can be that builder in your own field, in your work, your art, your parenting, your leadership. You might not see the cathedral completed, but your stone matters. And here's the profound truth about this. The rewards of playing the long game aren't just future-facing. They come back to you in the present. When you live with a horizon longer than your lifetime, you live lighter. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You stop demanding everything now because you understand the rhythm of growth. You start living in decades, not days. In meaning, not metrics. In depth, not noise. And ironically, that's what makes you more effective today. Because long-term thinkers make better short-term decisions. When your compass points toward legacy, you stop wasting time on the trivial. You invest your time, your money, your heart in what multiplies quietly. That's what separates builders from consumers. Builders ask, will this still matter when I'm gone? Consumers ask, Will this make me feel good right now? One question creates continuity. The other creates noise. So maybe intergenerational success isn't just about what you leave. It's also about how you live, how you carry yourself through each season, how you treat people when you don't need anything from them, how you plant kindness in moments that no one will ever record. Because one day, someone you'll never meet will make a better choice because of a story, a gesture, a system, or a word that began with you. You may never see the forest grow, but your fingerprints will be on every leaf. That's what it means to play the long game. To live not just for recognition, but for continuation. To think not just in profits, but in generations. To build something that grows quietly, beautifully, long after you're gone. So tonight, when the noise fades, ask yourself, what tree am I planting today? What will its roots hold tomorrow? Because one day, someone you'll never meet will sit in its shade and silently thank you without ever knowing your name. And that's the purest form of success there is. I'm Nathan, and this was The Long Game. Thank you for being part of this journey, for thinking deeply, for caring beyond yourself, and for walking this long road together. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep planting.